Yo, okay, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I've never played the tabletop board game in which this is based on, so I'm not familiar with the world and the lore and the creatures and the characters, so I am going into this movie just as a member of the general movie-going audience. What I do need to say is I just didn't like the trailers and the marketing for this movie. They did nothing for me to get me hyped or excited for this movie. In fact, I found the trailers and the characters in them very annoying, and it just had this very sort of generic feel. Like the trailers and the marketing for this film gave the film this kind of very generic been there, seen it feel, and it just didn't get me hyped. So yeah, I'm not a fan when it comes to the marketing of this movie, and I wasn't really sort of hyped for this film. And that being said, let's start off with how I felt about the characters within this movie. I ended up liking every character. I just loved how they were brought to life by all members of the cast. Chris Pine was great as our lead, Edgin Davis. Michelle Rodriguez as Holger Kilgore is fantastic. Everyone has great comic timing. I thought the chemistry and the dynamic between the characters was spot on. I liked Justice Smith as Simon, a half-elf magic sorcerer. Everyone was just really likable in this movie. They felt natural in their roles, and I felt everyone delivered the humour brilliantly. Tonally, this movie was perfect. Like, you've got that very lighter comedic side of it, the very self-aware, poking fun at itself at times side of the movie, and then you've got that more kind of somber side of the story when it comes to certain characters' stories and what they are going through, and I just felt like that was handled beautifully. Like, the tone in this movie and how they balanced the different sort of tones was just perfect. Another thing that I loved about this movie was the use of practical effects. I loved seeing the cast on real sets and on real locations, not just in front of blue screen or green screen. Yes, there's an awful lot of CGI used, but the CGI is also really impressive in this movie. But I just adored the use of practical effects. You could just feel the world more. The world felt more tangible, and it was a much more immersive experience as a result. This very fantastical world all of a sudden felt more real and lived in as a result of the use of practical effects within all the CGI. And there were a lot of different creatures within this movie where they could have easily used CGI, but you know what? They went with a guy in a suit, and I fucking loved that. And for example, there's a bird called Jonathan. It's a guy in a suit, but he had more character as a result than any CGI version of it could have created, I feel. I fucking loved the use of practical effects in this movie. And this movie has an enormous heart at its core. I ended up liking and rooting for all the characters and their journeys. There's this real big emotional anchor and journey to Chris Pine's character, and I felt like it was handled so well. It was quite beautiful in the way in which they handled it, and Chris Pine just gives this really strong, believable performance. He balanced these more somber moments with the humour so well. It sort of goes back to the tone really of this movie and how they handled sort of the mix of those lighter comedic tones and the more somber moments when it comes to these characters' journeys. The blend of performances and how they handled that was just simply beautiful. I honestly didn't expect the human element to be so strong within this film. You know, there's this real powerful human journey that Pine's character goes on, and there's this particular moment at the end and a realization of what Chris Pine's character must do and what is right, and how this moment is played out through his performance and visually was really quite powerful. Like, I'll be honest, I found this particular moment hard to watch. It sort of pulled on the heartstrings. It wasn't overpowering or heavy-handed, and it was handled just right. It was beautiful. There are some really great imaginative action scenes in the movie. This is one scene with this very large dragon, which was amazing. And all the action was shot very well. I thought this was a very well directed movie with a lot of confidence behind the camera. Like, you could feel the confidence within the direction of this movie. The plot is pretty familiar, you know, sort of kind of been there, seen it before, but it's how the movie is crafted and how the characters were brought to life by the actors and how the story is told by its directors is what makes this movie such an enjoyable and fun experience. I really ended up enjoying this movie. It's a very fun, enjoyable, moving experience. You get sucked in and immersed into this fantastical world. You feel like you're there because of the way in which the world is brought to life through practical effects. And yeah, you got CGI, but the CGI is there to enhance that world. And you're not smothered in CGI. The script, the writing in this movie, I thought was incredibly smart and witty. The chemistry and the dynamic between the cast, the characters, was spot on. And I just didn't think I'd find myself saying any of this because the trailers and the marketing for this movie just did nothing for me. When the first reactions and reviews started coming through, I thought, right, okay, it might just be fine for me. I might just enjoy it and it'll be okay. But I was really surprised by how much of a good time this film was. This is probably one of the biggest surprises of the year for me so far. I urge everyone to go and check this movie out because it is such a good fun time at the cinema where you get lost for over 2 hours. And talking about runtime, this movie is just short, or I think it's around the 2-hour 10 mark. It does not feel like that. There was not one moment in this movie where I felt bored. It flowed beautifully. It's immersive, it has heart, it's fun, it's exciting, it's imaginative. Perfect blend of tone. There was this air of confidence in how the movie was directed. You know, you could tell the directors know the material that they're playing with, and the use of practical effects and real world settings just gave this movie a much more real and grounded feeling in what is a very fantastical world, and I just love that. The score by Alon Balfi, I think I've just butchered that name, apologies. But the score in this movie is epic. I dug it. It's fantastic. And this is not a complex movie. You don't need to have played the board game, I feel. Though there are plenty of references that fans of the tabletop board game will pick up on. But it's just a fun, entertaining time that loses you for 2 hours. And it really didn't feel like 2 hours. It flies. So yeah. They are my thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. Really did not expect to like it as much as I did. It was a pleasant surprise. Please go and see the movie. If you're like me and you weren't really sort of taken by the trailers, ignore the trailers, ignore the marketing. Just go into this movie because I believe you'll have a good time. I will be giving Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, an 8.5 out of 10. There are my thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons. What are your thoughts? Please let me know below and let's get discussion going. Did you agree or disagree with anything I said? Maybe you hated the movie and you're a fan of that tabletop board game, then please let me know below. And if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. If you want to see future reviews from our geek in Wales just ramble on, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. We've got a couple of movies coming out next week. It's Ben Affleck's Air, Super Mario Brothers, The Pope's Exorcist. Yep, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be seeing you guys soon.